I'm Sebastian St. James. Should you carry 3 years' worth of cash to cover your expenses? This is called the bucket strategy, where different buckets carry different asset types. I know, personally, I keep my bucket of cash in the laundry, next to the mop. In a previous video, one of my viewers said, "So sir, I may be opening a can of worms here. I think we're in for one exciting video. But if I were to retire tomorrow with, say, $1.5 million, some retirement videos recommend a bucket strategy with, say, 3 years of cash in case the market declines. If I were to apply the principles in this video, would that mean 100% retirement funds are okay in, say, a share index fund as opposed to a portion in cash?" This is Elmo, and Elmo's opening a can of worms. Elmo's going to retire with $1.5 million. He invests 100% in stocks. He has no cash safety bucket. Ooh, that's brave. This is Konstantin, and he's one of my channel members. He may not look like this in real life, but today he does. I'm trying something new. In my videos where I pick a number of characters to tell the story, I'm going to choose them from my channel members. Yes, I know. So if you want to be featured in my videos, become one of my channel members. Konstantin is also going to retire with $1.5 million. However, he has a bucket with 3 years of expenses. Oh, that's interesting. And he invests the rest in stocks. There's also a 3-bucket system, but this question asks about 2. Is going 100% stocks and having no cash buffer reckless? Or is carrying cash basically a waste of time? Now we've met our 2 characters and our 2 investment systems, how exactly are we going to withdraw our money? Well, we're going to withdraw once a year. Firstly, if you have cash available, we use that. If not, then you withdraw from stocks. Now, of course, that applies to Con, but when it comes to Elmo, he doesn't have cash in the first place, so of course it'll be 100% stocks he withdraws from. In the first year, they both withdraw $75,000. Wow, okay. That's actually 5% rather than the 4% from the 4% rule. I know, I'm a trendsetter. We then increase the yearly withdrawal by inflation for that year. So how much is inflation? Well, here's inflation for the last 62.7 years in Australia. Maintenance involves adjusting the buckets periodically, usually annually or every 6 months, with the cash bucket being topped up from returns generated in other buckets. Sometimes this is called rebalancing. So, with the bucket strategy, we'll rebalance to maintain 3 years' worth of expenses in cash. But there is a problem. How do I know what 3 years' worth of expenses is going to be? Because I increase my expenses each year by inflation, and next year and the year after hasn't happened yet. So I don't know what those inflation levels are going to be. That's an impossible thing for me to do. Alright, so to simplify it, we're going to go 3 times the current withdrawal amount in cash. When market declines call a fall in value in one or both growth buckets, in our case, of course, we have one. This is taken from a 3-bucket strategy. The rebalancing process may be postponed entirely, which is what Elmo's talking about. If the stock market has gone down, then we withdraw only from cash and we don't rebalance that year. Of course, that's a safety mechanism because if your shares have gone down in value, well, you don't want to sell them at that point, considering you've got all that cash sitting there. This is the S&P 500 total return, which means including dividends, converted to Australian dollars over the last 35.4 years, and that's the data set we'll be using. This is a high interest savings account in Australia over the last 41.1 years, and we'll be using the inflation over the last 62.7 years. So, how are we going to test which is the better system? How do we go about solving this unsolvable problem? So we're going to draw random sampling from the actual real data over the 35.4 years. And stocks, high interest savings account, and inflation will use the figures from the same sample date. So this is how it works. We take a sample from historical real data. We ask the question, did the stock market in the preceding 12 months go up or did it go down? And that's going to tell us what happens with our stocks and what was the cash rate at that same date and what was inflation on that same date. And we put that into our system and we simulate it. Of course, we're not just simulating something fairly straightforward. There are rules on top of rules. So let's break it down and create one bit at a time. So in blue at the top, we have Elmo, who is 100% stocks. We're comparing that with green, which is the total of the yellow and the red line. In other words, the shares and the cash. In the graphs I'm about to show you, the colours will stay the same. So it'll be Elmo versus Con, or blue versus green. On the left, the figures actually stay exactly the same. And then over time, as the stocks is growing and the cash is also growing, but not so much, the blues actually takes off and beats green, and green is the total of the shares in the stocks. Good, that's step one. So in this graph, we've actually withdrawn nothing. We invested the original amounts, which is 3 years worth of cash, the rest in stocks, or 100% in stocks, and we've let it actually run based on historical sampling from the market. So phase number one, 2 thumbs up. Over 30 years, which is our retirement period, with no withdrawals at all, 100% stocks returned 13.4% CAGR, which is compound annual growth rate. Cash returned 4.78%. With the 2-bucket strategy, cash and stocks, it returned 12.8%. 13% in stocks, 4% in cash. Yeah, these figures are totally making sense to me and are exactly what I expect in a simulation. There are 2 figures in that list that should jump out at you. Oh, I see. Elmo actually returned slightly more than Con, 13.4 versus 12.8. Interesting. If you're going to keep some of your wealth in cash, and of course cash doesn't perform as well as stocks, then it should be pretty obvious to you that you will underperform a 100% stock portfolio. But the question Elmo is asking is, does the protection that cash provides you in a down market where we don't withdraw from stocks at all and we just take money from our cash on hand actually protect us and beat the underperformance that otherwise that system would give us? Well, we'll have to wait and see. To visually separate things out so you can see the steps happen in real time on the graph, we're going to do things at different months. The 1st of January every year, we'll calculate 12 months worth of returns. Then, a month later, what we'll do is we'll actually do the withdrawals. So let's do that now. So we start off with $1.5 million. We withdraw 75k, which leaves us with 1.425k. Oh, I can see we do it in 2 parts. So first of all, we calculate the returns, and then a little bit later, we actually do the withdrawals. So visually, you can see what's going on the graph. As money does not just come out of the sky, where are we actually taking this withdrawal from? Well, with the 100% stock system, you can only withdraw from stocks. That's pretty obvious. With the 2-bucket system, mostly we're trying to withdraw from cash. So let's simulate that and see how it works. With Elmo at the top in blue, he withdraws from stocks, and I can see stocks then go down. However, Con actually withdraws from cash, and I can see down the bottom cash is going down, which means in yellow, his stocks are unaffected because he's done his withdrawal from cash. But there is a problem. If you keep withdrawing from cash, what's going to happen? Well, you're going to soon run out. And then what happens? Down the bottom in red is cash. We keep withdrawing till, oh no, we've run out of cash. Well, that's a bad day. At that point, green, which was the total of the cash and shares, of course now just equals shares, so the yellow and the green line become exactly the same line. So in the next year, the green actually goes down, which means instead of the cash, because we no longer have any, we're withdrawing from shares. The system's working. This is realistic because I withdraw from cash, but of course I'm not allowed to rebalance if the market has gone down. What happens if the market goes down 3 years in a row? Well, I'm kind of going to run out of money, and the next year it goes down again, I'm going to have to withdraw from shares. There's no 2 ways about it. In year 1, we're withdrawing $75,000. The question is, in subsequent years, am I upping that amount by inflation? Well, that's the plan. Well, in year 1, we start off with 1.5 million. After the first withdrawal, it goes to 1.425. And then later on, it's 1.076. And our withdrawal goes down to 0.984. As much as I know you love to do maths, let me do it for you. If we subtract the figures, the first withdrawal, of course, is $75,000. The second one works out to be $92,000. Aha! We have been increasing by inflation. Very good. The market simulator is coming alive. For you, it's just a couple of minutes. For me, it's been a couple of days. That leaves us with just one step, which is, of course, to do the rebalancing, which, of course, is conditional depending on whether the market's going up or down. Oh, this is just our cash. So we start off with 3 years of expenses, which is $225,000. And right there, the rebalance is skipped because I guess the market was going down. Now, we know it's been skipped because when we rebalance, it actually replenishes our cash, and we haven't. It's just gone down. And later on, we do actually rebalance. The cash goes all the way up to 236, which is higher than 225. Why is that? Because 3 years worth of expenses, and our expenses have now gone up with inflation, so we need more cash. So where does the money come from for our rebalancing? Well, it comes from stocks. Up the top in red, you can see it actually has come down because we sold off some shares. In blue, you can see the cash has gone up because we've rebalanced to cash. With all the parts of the simulation working 100%, it's now time to press the big go button and run some simulations. Oh, run number 1. Okay, well, it seems to be a fairly good market, particularly at the end. The first thing I noticed is cash actually went down to 0, like all the way, which probably means we had to sell some shares, and it happened twice, more than once. So based on this simulation, keeping 3 years worth of cash, is that enough? No, it wasn't. And who's won? Well, that's Blue, which is Elmo in 100% stocks. If we take the red line and the yellow line, that adds up to the green line, that's a total, and that's come second. So Elmo with 100% stocks returned a CAGR of 6.85%. And Cash plus stocks, the 2-bucket strategy, returned 6.35%, which is actually slightly lower. Run number 2, who's won? It is Blue, which is 100% stocks. And the 2-bucket actually came, well, it did pretty well as well, but not as good as stocks. So, straight stocks returned 14.1%, wow, and that's with withdrawals factored in, that's pretty amazing. And the 2-bucket strategy returned 13.8%, still very good, but not as good as 14.1. Run number 3. Oh, we've had a little bit of dive down at the end. Will our cash bucket protect us? Well, it didn't seem to. So Blue has actually won, which is 100% stocks. The hybrid approach came second. Stocks returned a CAGR of 12.8% and the hybrid 12.5%. Well, very close again, but it hasn't beaten stocks, which is starting to become a theme. In run number 4, straight away we notice Blue is at the top. Blue, of course, is 100% stocks. And the 2-bucket strategy, well, let's face it, this is a bull market, and therefore, of course, it's going to underperform. So stocks returned a CAGR of 7.08%, the hybrid 6.88%. Oh, I've just got a brand new channel member. This is Hoi Mai. So, what interesting things have I discovered about Hoi? Well, they're a big fan of Warren Buffett, and they like watching men with beards. Shh, you didn't hear that from me. Perhaps I should grow one. So Hoi, thank you very much for becoming my latest channel member. Run number 5, who has won? Oh, I see, we've stripped away the cash and the shares component and now we're just using the total. So it's Blue versus Red and Blue has won, which is Elmo in 100% stocks. Oh, well done. Over that time, stocks returned 7.15%, the 2-bucket 6.78%. Run number 6. Oh, a down market, okay. Well, this is to be expected. Stocks do not always go up. And over a 30-year period they probably will, but of course we're withdrawing, aren't we, every year? Let me zoom in and find out who won. Boy, that is very close. It's almost impossible to tell, so I need the numbers. Elmo has lost, 3.59%, and the bucket strategy, which if any time it should have protected you, it should be right now in this crash, it lost 3.69%. Well, the bigger the loss, the worse it is, which means the 100% stocks portfolio has beaten the hybrid portfolio in the time it is supposed to perform, but it didn't. Wow. Well, that was interesting. And our last run. Clearly, Blue is the winner. Blue is 100% stocks. So by how much? 7.74% if you're in stocks, and if you're hybrid, it'd be 7.42. Ooh, actually that's a fairly big difference. We have now done 7 market simulations based on real historical data. So what's my conclusion? The 3-year cash bucket strategy underperformed the 100% stock strategy in all simulations. Oh, I just got a thanks from Shrimp Tanks. What are the tax repercussions of investing in the USA stocks and the various ETFs? Trying to work it out makes my head spin. Or as the kids would say today, it's doing my head in. So thank you very much, Shrimp, for that. Now, because of Shrimp's thanks, it now propels his question towards the top of the queue. So if you want to be like Shrimp and have your questions answered next, hit the thanks button below this video. Could it be if I ran the simulation 1,000 times, then maybe 1, 2, 3 times when the hybrid system would actually beat the 100% stock system? Well, the answer is yes, it's certainly possible, but I have a problem with that. The big problem is if you're going to have something as your potential actual retirement strategy, then in my opinion, it needs to work at least 50% of the time, if not more. Because why choose a strategy that's designed to protect you in a scenario which likely won't even happen in your retirement? We're not protecting against a 1 in 100 year flood here. So far the 2-bucket system hasn't won. So let's do 3 more tests to round it up to 10 to see if it does. In our next test over 30.2 years, Blue wins. Of course, Blue is 100% stocks. In the next test, well, it's a bit down at the end, but 100% stocks wins. In our last test, well, it's blue again, isn't it? 100% stocks wins. So my conclusion is the cash component hindered rather than protected the portfolio returns in all 10 of our simulations. So really, whether this strategy is appropriate for you or not is entirely up to you, but based on the runs we've done, the probability is not on its side. Well, that was revealing, but perhaps it's all a little bit too much for you, and you think, oh, I'll just invest in stocks and get the dividends, in which case you'll need to know what are the best dividend stocks on the ASX right now. Click here to find out, or if you've seen that, click here.